Hello and welcome to the Books Crypto Club weekly catch-up on Zoom. It is Sunday the 26th of February 2023, and this week we're going to be talking about whatever we end up talking about, really. These sessions are open to novices and experts alike, so some weeks we have beginners who want to learn things about wallets and how blockchains work, what proof of work is, what proof of stake is, what the various acronyms are, DeFi, NFTs, ICOs, STOs, TGEs, there's lots and lots of them. And then we also have experts who come along who share their knowledge about what's happening in the blockchain world, crypto custody, or whatever else, really. Sessions, as I say, open to everybody. There's details in the link below on how to come along to a future one. And we hold these sessions every Sunday evening, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. UK time. So come along to a future one. So with that, let's see who's going to come and join us today. Hey, Divine.
Hi, Gary.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
What brings you along today then, Divine? I think this is the first time you've been along to one of these sessions, isn't it?
Yeah, it's my first time. I have been, I'm a blockchain developer. So I've been also working full-time as a software engineer. So I build web applications for companies. But yeah, recently I quit my job to pursue entrepreneurship. So I build web applications and I'm looking to expand my network in the Web3 community. So I've built a couple of projects related to NFT and also some crypto coins.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, welcome aboard. Whereabouts are you based?
Yeah, I'm currently based in Rotterdam, the Netherlands.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got a wide range. We've got Adrian who's joined us as well. Adrian, it must be, 5 a.m. for you at the moment because you're in Australia?
Yeah, it's 5 a.m., but I was going to get up anyway. So I thought I'd listen in, Gary.
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining us, Adrian. And it looks like we may have a few more joining us today as well. The great thing about these sessions is that we get people from all around the planet, and it's open to everybody. And we get a mixture of people. So Adrian is something of an expert in the legal side of things. He and I have done some collaboration on a project or two, and he's very knowledgeable on the whole blockchain, but also the cryptography side of things as well, which is a rare combination to have a lawyer who understands mathematics to the level he does. So a great asset. And so we've just been joined by Sebastian as well. Hey, Sebastian.
He's on mute.
Hello there.
Hey, Sebastian, we're just saying hi to everybody. So say who you are and where you're from.
Sorry, I didn't expect that I'm going to be asked. I just wanted to listen. So I'm originally from Romania, from Transylvania, and been living in the UK for the last 10 years, 2 years in Aberdeen, 2 years in London, and then the last in Rugby, close to Birmingham.
Okay, excellent. So a global traveller then. That's really good.
Yeah.
What's your interest, Sebastian? Is it in a particular area like technology or crypto or digital assets?
So, I mean, yes, I love technology, space as well, and also art. And my project last night is basically focused on in this area. And basically I'm here in a way, my purpose in life is, how to explain, in a way to protect the most valuable things and also to in a way to express myself in new ways and unique ways and help building a sustainable future together with others.
Excellent. Well, that's good. Well, you're joined by Divine, who's doing, I think you said Web3 stuff. So there's a connection there. We've got Adrian, who's certainly got an interest in things like digital assets and the custody and protection of them. And we've just been joined by JT as well. Hey, JT. So he's fumbling for the mute button now.
Hey. Hi,
are you traveling at the moment?
Yeah, I'm on a train. Elizabeth line now.
Okay, that's good. Well, we've got a mixture of people from around the UK, Australia, Rotterdam, so Netherlands, and Australia. So a good mix today. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions or anything. I know there's a number of people who are on the call today. This is the first time you've been along to one of these sessions. And the way we run these is totally open. There's no preset agenda. There's no particular topics that we're going to discuss in order or anything like that. It really is open to everyone who comes along. So if you've got questions to ask, fire away. And there are people here who might have insight, expertise, or certainly at least opinions on things. Or if you're someone who's working on something and you'd like to share a little bit more to the community about what's going on, then fire away. So open to everybody. So anyone got any initial opening things that they'd like to talk about or ask about?
Yeah, I think I have a question. So you said someone is into cryptography here, because yeah, I think I have some questions about this. I'm not sure if I understand this topic very right. Basically my previous experience is in stenography, which is like an encrypted, very short form of let's say
Hidden
language.
messages.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Stenography is hidden messages.
Yes, exactly. In a short form. And what will be the difference then between stenography and cryptography?
Well, cryptography is based upon having a set of keys, whether it's asymmetric or symmetric keys, that will encode some clear text into some ciphertext. Whereas stenography, I mean, the classic stenography was the Romans, or was it the Romans or the Greeks? I can't remember. That would tattoo on a message on a soldier's head after they shaved it, and then they would let it grow back. And so they would send messages from one general to another or one person to another. That is the form of stenography. Now, the most common stenography is what's called the least bit, which is usually the parity bit in a byte, and they switch that. So if you have a message, you can put in the least byte the information. Now, sometimes they do encrypt that message, but a lot of times they don't. And they usually embed them in pictures because they're much larger in they could be 100 megabytes. So therefore, you've got a lot of least bit arrangements on the parity bit. It does create problems with clearness of a picture, but that's stenography. Stenography is just basically grabbing a piece of information and moving it into a much larger document, and usually using the least bit arrangement which is the parity bit that they put their message in. Whereas with cryptography, you actually encode it, and if it's asymmetric, then you can have a public key and a private key, which is mainly what all the blockchains use.
The way,
does that help you?
Sebastian, I was going to offer an additional thing. My description or my definition of cryptography, first of all, is it's the mathematics of keeping secrets, whereas stenography is a means of having secrets hidden in plain sight, almost, because you're not necessarily cryptographically hiding them, you're just embedding them within something else. Adrian might have a purist's view on that, though, which he's the person who knows more about this than I do. Does that help?
Well, that's why I did my PhD in.
Exactly. I'm not going to go head to head with you on that. In terms of trying to outdo you, I know you're miles ahead on me.
Yeah, it helps a lot, and I think you're both right in the way you described it. I also see stenography more related to art. If you think about the pyramids, the Egyptian writings, or even the Sanskrit writings, I think.
No, that's different again. Sorry, Sebastian, that's different again.
Is it?
They are languages. I mean, the hieroglyphics.
Oh.
The interesting thing about the hieroglyphics was that they were they are a phonetic language, but people didn't know how to read the phonetics. And it wasn't until they got the Rosetta Stone, where there was a combination of the phonetics with ancient Greek, that they were able to see a one-to-one relationship. And it took a Frenchman in the late 19th century, Champignon was the Frenchman who broke the code. But that's not cryptography at all. That's just a language. There's lots of languages out there that some in South America where we still don't know what they mean, because we don't have the corresponding relationship between what we do know with what is actually written in some of the ancient languages, and that's the big problem. So now hieroglyphics is actually a completely separate language. It's not anything to do with cryptography at all.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah, you described it more accurately, and yeah, I'm totally with you. And yeah,
If you're really
maybe
interested in this, there's a very good book by Simon Singh called The Code Book. Simon, I think he went to Cambridge. Simon Singh, really good book called The Code Book, that will explain all of that stuff to you. What cryptography is, what stenography is, how hieroglyphics, how Champignon solved the combination or the connection between ancient Greek, because we knew ancient Greek, and how it felt with the hieroglyphics.
So, Sebastian,
How do you spell the name of the author, please?
Champignon is Champion.
Thanks.
Champion.
Thanks.
so it's not mushroom in French then, which is champignon.
No. He's very famous. He solved the problem of hieroglyphics.
Okay. So thanks
There
for
was
that,
an
Adrian.
Englishman involved, but he got lost in translation.
There's no irony in there, isn't there? Thanks for sharing that, Adrian. It's really useful. And Sebastian, I don't know, is that something that you're looking at incorporating with crypto in some way? Because it's fascinating, things like NFTs and that kind of stuff. Quite often have got imagery and that kind of thing in them. Well, go for it.
Yeah, exactly. So I see the way of using it in regards to art, in exploring new art forms, contemporary art forms. That's one thing, and then the second thing is to protect innovative ideas. From other people who might want to steal your ideas and implement them before you. So those are the main cases that I have in mind.
So you're thinking in terms like patents or copyrights and imagery and intellectual property protection and that kind of thing?
Yes,
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know, Divine is...
Can I just say, Gary, they're not very well hidden, because there are applications out there, because they use the least significant bit, which is the parity bit. So all they do, there's an application out there that's on the web that you can download, and it will check all the least significant bits to see if they actually match what the parity bit should be. And if they don't, then they know that there's something hidden in the message.
Okay.
Very easy to extract.
So certainly interesting stuff. I wanted to link it back though. I wanted to bring in a couple of the others, so Divine and Elena maybe. In terms of Divine, I don't know where the stuff you're doing. You're talking about getting into Web3. Is that something that you're thinking of it from a crypto perspective, an NFT perspective, or more in terms of digital ledgers and that kind of thing?
Yeah, thank you. I think getting into crypto / Web3, because as a software engineer / web developer / mobile app developer, so it's in terms of the development aspect, like building the product, It's not, let's say, on the level of writing or setting up those cryptographic uh, algorithms that are being run by these smart chains. So, yeah.
Okay, that's good. Okay, it sounds a fascinating subject in its own right. I don't know, anyone got any other thoughts or questions that they'd like to share or ask?
My only thought of the moment is a week or 2 weeks ago, I was at an Irish blockchain Zoom meeting.
Hey,
Gillian Godzel was there, and
okay.
she was saying that Web3 at the moment is at a very, very, very extremely basic level. So we are only at the very, very beginning right now.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
And Gillian, if I remember correctly, is she a writer for Cointelegraph? She's a contributor or something, I think. She's a crypto journalist.
And she does blockchain podcasts.
Yep, yeah. I've met her a few times, and I know that you and I have got a common shared interest through her,
Yeah.
in fact, which I didn't realise about until I had a different conversation with her the other day about something completely different when I realised whereabouts in the country she was.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff in a small world. Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
it is.
Okay, so back over to everybody, really. Any thoughts or anything? Adrian, you've been doing lots of stuff around the Australian world, which is always interesting to hear what's going on with legislation on that. Yeah. I'm frozen. Can anyone see me moving? Elena, can you see me
All
moving?
good. Yeah, yes.
All
yeah,
good.
I can see that. All good.
Adrian, maybe it's your end. Can you hear me okay? Oh, I think maybe Adrian has died away then. I'm sure he'll drop off and rejoin if necessary. That's a shame, because I was about to ask Adrian to share any knowledge about what's going on in Australia around crypto and regulation right now. Never mind. Divine.
Maybe when he comes back.
Yeah, I'll pick up on it when he rejoins then. Divine, in terms of the Netherlands then, any exciting things happening there at the moment?
Yeah, the Netherlands, I think I can say they're trying to adopt blockchain. The government, let's say quite a lot of people are pushing towards that. I met my fellow countrymen that came to the Netherlands from the United States for some sort of survey to help the government like adopt crypto a bit more, and also see how they can like collaborate with immigrants in the country. So I think it's still at a very basic level here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, less so on the crypto side, more on the blockchain side. There's been some interesting projects going on, particularly around supply chain and logistics, with using the distributed ledger side of things, which has been interesting.
Yeah, I think mostly since I've been like I was working full time. I was also doing freelancing on the side. But yeah, since I recently like came out of like working full time, I think I don't like have much knowledge on like the blockchain space here in the Netherlands. So I think with time, probably a couple of months more, then I'll be able to, let's say, attend a lot more meetups and get to know the state of blockchain / crypto in the Netherlands.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if you're only just getting into that space, then drop me a note separately. I've got some contacts I think in Rotterdam and Amsterdam, who are more around the supply chain side of things. A couple of consultants in that space who might be able to share some insights with you or help you better understand the community, if that's something you're only just getting into.
And that would be super helpful. That would be super helpful.
Yeah,
Thank
well, just find me somewhere that you can usually. The easiest way I say to people, just Google Gary Nuttall technology, and I fill the first page of Google with the responses on that, I think, or Gary Nuttall emerging technology. You'll find me on LinkedIn. is the easiest thing. Just ping me a note through that, and we'll connect. That'll be good. So Elena, maybe then, with you saying you went to a blockchain event in Ireland, what's your thinking about that? Are there many things happening there at the moment that you're aware of?
No, it's quiet. No, I probably wouldn't be the most informed person at the moment.
Okay. I find it interesting because certainly in Dublin, down by, I don't know what they call it, but the area that's been redeveloped by the waterfront, I know there's a number of companies, the big accountancy firms, the likes of PwC, Deloitte, these kind of things, they all seem to have like blockchain practices there. And so I know that they've had a couple of events on there. I realise that's a bit further north than where you are.
It's a little bit further north.
Yeah, but I know that there's quite a lively scene in that. So, okay. Well, it looks like Adrian's come and rejoined us. Adrian, I'm guessing I'm not frozen now.
No, well, I thought you'd gone frozen, and then I lost connection. You were about to ask me a question?
Yeah, that's right. I was just going around the group trying to get understanding about, the crypto space and the blockchain space in terms of regulation and legislation and that. I just wondered if you had anything to share about what's going on in Australia at the moment, so around regulations in particular.
Well, yeah. In Australia, we currently have a consultation paper which I'm responding to from the Federal Department of Treasury. They've issued a consultation paper, fairly short, it's only about 59 pages, on token mapping. And the difficulty with their paper, and out of that, they're then going to, once they've worked out their token mapping, and what they're trying to do with token mapping is try to understand not necessarily dividing tokens up into utility or security or any of the other types of tokens, but looking at the functional results that will arise from the use of a token and how it fits within the financial framework within Australia. We have, under our corporations law, we have obviously definitions very similar to the Howey test in managed investment schemes, securities, bonds, debentures. So they're looking at, we also have this other interesting structure called a financial product. And if you issue a financial product, then you have to have what's called an Australian Financial Services license. But more importantly, you can only trade a financial product in an open market. You can do private transactions, that's not covered. But in an open market, you need to register that financial product onto what's called a market. Whoever does it must have an Australian market license. Mm-hmm. Now they're actually quite rare. Australian market license. The Australian Stock Exchange has got one. The National Stock Exchange. We have three main, I wouldn't call them main stock exchanges in Australia or securities exchanges, but we do have three sizable for our population. And we have what's called a very old one, which has historically just been able to chug along, which is called the Bendigo Stock Exchange. I don't even know what's on the Bendigo Stock Exchange. The National Stock Exchange runs, basically it's tried to emulate what NASDAQ does. So it looks at technology stocks mainly. And the Australian Stock Exchange is the 5th largest stock exchange in the world, I believe. It trades just like the New York Stock Exchange, the London Stock Exchange, the Shanghai Stock Exchange, and the Tokyo Stock Exchange. So they're quite sizable entities. So what I've been doing is with financial products, this consultation paper is trying to fit the functional results of a token and how it fits within our financial services legislation. And at the end of the day, all they're trying to do is to say, how do we protect the consumer? Because there was a study in Australia by a very large digital currency exchange that identified that by the end of this calendar year, 2023, there will be 1 million new owners, people who have never held crypto before, that will hold crypto by the end of this year. More importantly, the study, combined with an Australian Bureau of Statistics study, identifies that by the end of the year, there will be 5.2 million Australians over the age of 16 who will own some crypto. And that works out to be quite we're only 26 million people. I don't know how many youngsters there are in under 16. Well, let's say there's 8 million of them. So you've got nearly a third of the population, right? There's only, well, more than that. If you've got, 8 million, you bring it down, that brings it down to about 16 million, and you get 5, that's a third of the population will have some form of crypto. So the government is rather concerned that the vast majority of these people do not understand crypto. They get the majority of their information not from reliable sources, but mainly from journalists who haven't even got a clue. And so there's this FOMO reaction, the fear of missing out. And they read things like how Bitcoin rose to 61,000 US dollars, and they're afraid that they want to get on the bandwagon. So the government is now looking at how do we create a regulatory framework that protects the consumer. And unfortunately in Australia, much like the United States, not so much in the UK. I mean, the FCA has a very good handle on all of this, but we have regulators who are fighting basically each other to be the dominant party to control how crypto is going to operate. In the United States, you get FinCEN, you get the CFTC, and you get the SEC. And in particular, the CFTC and the SEC seem to be at loggerheads daily on who should be the dominant party to control this. In Australia, we have the Australian Consumer and Competition Commission, the ACCC. We have ASIC, which is the equivalent of the SEC. We have AUSTRAC, which is the equivalent of FinCEN. And we have ACMA. Now, ACMA is the Australian Communications Media Authority, and they control advertising over the internet, all right, through spam. They're the ones that monitor the spam and do all of those things. And they're all fighting, well, not fighting each other, but they're all trying to create their little patch of control in Australia. So that's a major problem. I think ASIC in the end will be the winner out of this, mainly because they have a certain amount of capability, but they don't have enough capacity. And that's one of the things that I'm raising with them. The other big thing with the Treasury consultation paper is that, unfortunately, they say up front, here are the definitions, which are very important all the way through this consultation paper, but unfortunately they got the definitions wrong. And so when you marry the definitions of what they're doing to what the content of the document is, it falls apart. So that's what I'm working on with from a regulatory perspective. The other things I'm working on, as Gary knows, I'm acting, and this is where I do know about the National Stock Exchange. I've got a client that has developed a blockchain carbon credit trading scheme, whereby you can basically trade carbon credits in an immutable fashion on a blockchain What it doesn't have is a payment mechanism, and also a carbon credit unit called an ACU in Australia has been designated to be a financial product. And as I said earlier, if it's a financial product, you need an AFSL and you need to put it onto a market that has a market license. So I'm in discussions with my client, with the National Stock Exchange, to license the technology to them so that we'll take a clip through on every transaction that occurs. And the good thing about the National Stock Exchange is that they've just done a deal with the Dubai Stock Exchange in the UAE. So there could be some expansions in that area. Plus my client is has had very lengthy discussions with a government in Southeast Asia as well to do things. So that's that. And then the other thing I'm working on is I've got a client in the United States that has a bison farm, and they want to put all of their bison, an image of them or some sort of digital representation, mainly their DNA. He's got about 800 bison, I think, at the present moment, and he wants to put them on a blockchain. And we're now looking at how could he bring in or we haven't actually built it yet. He's in the process of building this entire thing. How could he build encourage other bison farms to join so that there's like a national registry of bison in the United States that are privately owned, not the ones that are in the national parks like Yosemite National Park, but those that are on, like Bill Gates has a large bison farm. How could he encourage him to come onto the structure? Now, what we're looking at is, should we set this up as, or how do we set it up commercially? Does my client pay for the entire development of the structure and then license it to, say, a DAO to bring other people in where they could create a governance environment? Or should they use this international convention on called cooperatives? And should they create a cooperative of bison farmers to fund this whole thing? But my client is very astute. He's very, very wealthy. He's actually a billionaire in real terms. And we're looking at, and I suggested to him, only license it to him because the same position, it doesn't matter what the animal is. So we could then go to the equine industry, the horse industry, and start putting horses on their own blockchain. Believe it or not, dogs, for instance, the number of people who would register their dog on just by getting the vet to put a DNA, and then you can follow the medical history of all of these animals. So that's it's going to be a very long term, might take 10 years before he gets everything that he wants, but it's an interesting project that I'm working on.
It's fascinating as well, because I was doing some stuff a while ago, funnily enough, around bloodstock tracking on a blockchain. And it was for high value horses, as you say, for the equine side of things, but it was doing it on the veterinary side of things and vets and insurance. And it was the whole thing about being able to track and trace bloodstock, as you say, being able to follow the lineage, but also then having evidence that they've been injected with the right thing at the right time, that the test results are okay.
Yeah.
And this is exactly to say, you can apply that to, big four-legged creatures and small-legged creatures. So whether it's horses, dogs, cattle, anything. And I know it's funny with Divine being on the call in Rotterdam, the Dutch did some work a while ago, which wasn't blockchain-based at the time, which was about tracking and tracing cattle. And they had little tracking devices on them to check the animal's temperature and vital statistics and that, because from that you can start tracking and tracing what their general health is, whether they're going into a certain phase of fertility, and so you should be breeding with them, all this. And one of the firms I was looking at was thinking about putting that onto a blockchain. So again, you've got this immutable ledger of history of the provenance of the cow or the bull or whatever.
Yeah,
so it's all fascinating stuff.
well, it's a big problem in supply chain for meat, because we know that I think it was about 12 years ago, there was the Findus debacle, whereby Findus was buying what they believed to have been cattle meat from Eastern Europe, and it was actually horse meat. And when that was discovered, it was quite shocking to a lot of people that they were actually eating horse and not there's anything wrong with eating horse. I mean, it's been a staple diet for many ethnic groups across the world. But in us Westerners, we don't quite, there's something upsetting to some of us Europeans about eating horse.
Unless you're French.
Unless you're French or Romanian. I'm sorry, there's no one here from Romania, because that's where the meat substitution was actually occurring. But at the same time, in Australia, we're noted for some of our beef from Wagyu. Wagyu is a very high fat content cattle. There has been meat substitution in China in particular, where meat, what they do is they get pork fat and mix it in somehow. I don't know how they do it, and they sell it off as Wagyu in China. And the difference between the pricing is literally over a year, they thought there was between $1 and $1.5 billion differential. So it's in big value. Now, so they're looking at supply chain issues, and they want to make sure that if the meat is classified as a particular kind of cow, whether it's Hereford or Longhorn or whatever, or it's Wagyu, that they can trace it right back to the actual cow itself. And that's one of the other things they're looking at, is because of mad cow disease. I mean, you look at North America, they banned a lot of imports of cattle because there was contamination causing, is it called Khrushchev's?
Is that Yakov Khrushchev? Yeah.
Yeah, Yakov Khrushchev disease. So, this blockchain can actually help a lot in monitoring from paddock all the way to the retail consumer. And that's one of the things that there's a company in it's called Beef Ledger in Australia that's doing a lot of work in that area.
Well, it's kind of funny because this is where it's always interesting when we've got people from all around the world, because you're talking about cattle being tracked on the blockchain and that kind of thing. I don't know, Elena, you might be aware of the Ornua project. So Ornua was what used to be known as the Irish Dairy Authority or Agency, the Irish Dairy Board, sorry. And they were one of the first trade organizations to actually do a blockchain transaction with Barclays Bank, in fact, around payments and trades. And that was linking in with things like cattle acquisition, I think. So they're buying and selling cattle and sticking it on a blockchain and having trade details on it. So it's fascinating how it all goes around the world, because animals are all commodities in some way, and there's documentation that goes against it. Sorry, you're going to add something there. I thought you could say.
I'm just listening very attentively.
Yeah. This is where you discover there was a project down the road from you, type thing. Yeah, and I'm sure that Sebastian, because I think you said earlier on you're from Transylvania area, so I'm sure you won't take offence from what Adrian was saying about the issue with the counterfeit meat a few years ago, which was from Romania, as I remember. which actually affected Irish product, where they discovered that there was all sorts of contamination going on and everything. This is all fascinating stuff that I think it shows that the potential of using blockchain-based technologies to be able to track and trace, providing you can prove the provenance of what goes onto it in the first place, which is an interesting thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the old saying, garbage in, garbage out. You have to have clean data on your chain. Otherwise, it's a waste of time.
Exactly right. So I mean, how fascinating is that? We've ended up having conversation ranging from bison, cattle, trade finance. Before we were talking about hieroglyphics.
Hieroglyphics.
Yeah, I'm beginning to feel like we're running a history session and a geography session and a culture type thing.
And what happens if not clean data enters the blockchain?
Yeah.
Because it stays there forever. What do we do about it?
That's a great question, and that's why, for instance, I really think there is an issue in the blockchain space, and there is a big lack of curation and also authenticity. So before uploading any data on blockchain, I think it's very important to verify the data. So yeah, because the database is immutable. Obviously there is a burn address, but even when we say, oh, we burn that data, in a way is still kind of there, so it's immutable. So yeah, I really think curation and authenticity it's crucial. And yeah, I'm also working on this, and would like to join forces with other people as well, because in my opinion it's a lot of work in this field, and I don't know why. Yeah, not that many people care about this, and
it's because it's not a problem until it becomes a problem, and then it becomes a big problem. But I've worked on a few things on that, because it's always interesting. Because I used to get involved in data protection, so you've got rules like GDPR, right of erasure, and all this cool thing as well. And the ultimate thing is, to answer Elena's question, is it comes down to how you design your system and how it's using the blockchain. So what you don't do is you don't put data on a blockchain that you might need to change. What you do is you put links on the blockchain that point to the data, and then you put cryptographic hashing on the data to prove it's not being changed unless you want it to. And then you can maintain a complete history of transactions and everything as well.
Okay. Is it like an NFT being stored not on the blockchain, but it points to...
That's a pretty good analogy. So think of it that if you use the blockchain as a kind of like an index that points to where the data is, and it's got a link to prove that the data's not been changed. So this is where if you do what's known as cryptographic hash, which is where it creates a unique digital signature of that data. If you store that on the blockchain, then you can prove whether the data's been changed or not. And in the event that you do need to change the data, then you just change it to the latest stuff and update it and that kind of thing. But it's not an easy thing. I see we've just been joined by, well, it says Miss Green Jeans, but I've no idea what colour your jeans are. Divine, you came onto camera with that. Is that something where you've been looking at things like immutability and blockchains and that?
No, I was listening carefully to what you were just saying, and yeah, I think it's quite an interesting idea, like a way to also implement that. When Elena talked about the way NFTs are being stored in like a separate storage, so I think that's a nice idea.
Definitely. And it's something a lot of people don't realize as well, that an actual NFT is simply a digital receipt to show that you own something else. And that something else might be on, a different file storage system. It might be on a hard drive. It might be anywhere type thing. And a lot of people just don't understand that it's not the same thing. And when you look at how an NFT is constructed, where effectively it's an index maintained in a smart contract on a blockchain, pointing to a set of data somewhere else, there's about 7 areas where this can go wrong quite easily. So, and I'm seeing a nodding head there. So, Mrs. Green Jeans, come on, come off mute, say hi, tell us a bit more about yourself.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hi. Became interested in blockchain in about 2010. I was working in an area of the field that we were privy to this information as it was being developed in a certain region of the world. Didn't think much of it at the time, but it was a great idea, very inventive, to say the least. And as time went by, I just kept following it and just have been following it ever since. Very curious. I love technology. I love everything that it's bringing to the table. From the legal and regulation side it's where I hold my interest.
Okay. Whereabouts are you based these days then?
Oh, right. Yeah. No, I'm currently in the UK at the moment, but I've come from Tokyo, Japan, from Hong Kong, when we've landed here at the moment.
Okay. Yeah. I'm curious because you can't tell on Zoom these days, but we've got people literally for all around the world.
Yes.
Ranging from a couple in the UK, Ireland, Netherlands, and Australia at the moment. So we've got a diversity of views and other legal opinions from elsewhere. So it's great to get different insights.
Absolutely, and I've been stalking you. The thing is, I've been stalking you because I've been trying to get up to your meetups in town. I haven't been able to, and I saw this was on a Sunday night, and I put it in my diary because I really like to hear what people are thinking of. Explain your ideas, getting more information about the projects, and just to meet other people that are crypto curious as I am.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I was asking the others about their perspective of what's going on in their regions earlier on. I was interested. I was in Tokyo a couple of years ago, and I found that the crypto community in particular was fascinating because you go along, and anyone who's been to Japan will know how traditional, formal, and everything it is. Then you go to a crypto event, and it's like you've just arrived in San Francisco. It's all whooping and yee-hawing and.
Oh, it's unusual, to say the least. It's unusual. It's a bit of a bug out there at the moment, and I think the Japanese regulators are really putting some nice rails in place in order to gain more traction in this field. And I'm excited by what's happening over there.
Well, I guess as well that they're being in some ways led by the need to be competitive against other regulators. And certainly if you take a look at what Singapore's doing, that they are known as being an innovative crypto-supportive regulator. HKMA, so the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, seem to be becoming quite crypto savvy, if not friendly, which is good. And then Sorry, go on.
Last Monday, the HKMA did release new information allowing exchanges to open under certain guidance and regulation. And so, we've been deep diving into that, looking at the effects and how China is going to play a hand in that, as far as allowing certain retail investors and only high net worth individuals. But anybody who's lived in Asia knows that rules and regulations, although they come down from governing authorities, there's always a way around it. Mm-hmm. They put those rails in place, but people always find a way to work around it, and that's why it's been thriving out in Asia. Yep. It's adopted very, very quickly.
Yeah, as I describe it from the regulatory perspective, it's fascinating. You look at the USA compared to Asia and other countries, and effectively, the way I tend to describe it, although it's not technically completely correct, is that in the USA, you can do anything providing it's legal. Elsewhere in Asia, you can do anything providing it's not illegal.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
And, it sounds a bit kind of like profound, but yeah, it's fascinating stuff. While you're on then, because everyone's just chatting, we've covered a whole range of things this evening.
Yes, I've heard.
We've talked about tracking bison, cattle, dogs,
bison,
horses.
cattle. That's excellent.
Yeah. And then we were talking earlier on about going back to Egypt and ancient days with hieroglyphics and cryptography, and we didn't talk specifically about Caesar ciphers, but I'm surprised they didn't come into it as well. Well, I just wondered if there's anything that you wanted to ask or share or anything with this being the first time you joined.
Oh, there's so much, and I've come in halfway through the Zoom call, so I'm going to sit back and listen to you guys. And I know it's been very interesting because you just went over NFTs. I got a brief clips of your NFT information, which was really insightful. It's a great way of describing it. It's a receipt, and I like that. I like that analogy to be able to use that for myself when I explain it to people that are crypto curious but don't have the knowledge.
Yeah. Well, if you check my YouTube channel, I think I did a 5-minute explainer on NFTs a while ago.
Okay.
Which effectively said that they're not quite what people think they are, because everyone sees a Bored Ape Yacht Club avatar and they think that is the NFT.
Yeah.
And then you kind of explain to them, no, actually, it's this thing that says that you own that Bored Ape Yacht Club type thing. So interesting.
Yeah. So the problem, in my opinion, I think they really hurried up to make some money, and I think that's what their mistake was. So they didn't really think about copyright laws and international laws. And for instance, I'm also following the Bored Ape court cases. Like at some point they were taken to court because they had some Nazi symbols, and they said, we didn't want to make them. This is how the algorithm made them, so it wasn't intentional. But then, because they said that, basically what they did, they cannot they can no longer own certificates for copyright certificates, because the law says that you need to do the artwork intentionally to receive that certificate. So basically a lot of people are, how to put it, kind of uneducated when it comes to this space, and that's why we are seeing what we are seeing. And in my opinion, I don't agree with those NFT projects that really focus on volume, like to have a lot of volume in transactions, because it can easily be fake. Like, I don't know, like 10 or 20 people, they can just trade between each other, and obviously the volume goes up. So in my opinion, when it comes to NFTs, it's like even with traditional art, so we should look at the intrinsic value of the NFT, how original it is, what was the idea behind it, what was the utility of it, how big is the community, what access you have with that NFT, and so on. But people don't think that much, and they, as someone previously just said, they have this fear of missing something, and that's why they hurry up. And unfortunately, it is what it is. But I think things are getting better, and in my opinion, we can even have an NFT art on blockchain. But at the moment, most of it, it's not. It is as you said, is just metadata that directed to a link on a server that has that art file.
And it's probably interesting as well that legislation is constantly playing the game of catch up anyway, because I remember a few years ago now, there was the famous copyright case of a photograph of a chimpanzee or a monkey or something, which somebody was claiming copyright on, and then admitted that it was actually the chimpanzee or whatever, or the orangutan it may have been, that took the photo itself.
It was the chimpanzee that took the photo.
Yeah.
The chimp took the photo, but the owner of the camera tried to claim copyright.
Yep.
And the UK court came to the conclusion, as in Australia and in most other jurisdictions, in order to have copyright, you have to have a qualified person to have produced the work.
Yeah, exactly.
Qualified person must be a human being. There's a Chinese case whereby some artificial intelligence did some drawings, and the Chinese court said, no, there's no copyright in that. It has to be a qualified person. Chinese law is very similar because it follows the Berne Convention, which is an international convention on copyright. And there's also a case dealing with patents. In Australia, we've got a decision whereby, I've forgotten the gentleman's name, starts with TH. I know that anyway, he had an application. When he lodged his application, they asked who is the inventor, and he openly said that it was an artificial intelligence machine that was the inventor. And again, you need a human being to be the inventor, and so they discarded that if you don't have a human being, a bit like a monkey taking a photograph. There's a really famous statement by a judge in Australia says that if 1,000 monkeys worked for 1,000 years, I'm sure they could come up with a better tax act than what we've got. So you have to have a human being associated with the inventor, as well as producing the work for copyright because of the Berne Convention on the way it's struck. Now that may not sit the same forever, but that's the law as it stands today.
So that is interesting. That brings back the whole thing about NFTs and images, because some, if I remember correctly, what was it, Tamagotchis or something? There was something at one point, or it may have been CryptoKitties. In fact, CryptoKitties is probably it, where if you got two CryptoKitties to breed, they then generate something else which was unique.
Correct.
And you owned it. Yeah.
Correct.
So that's fascinating as to who owned copyright of the image rights.
Well, you probably don't have copyright in that work, but the thing about crypto is that it is possible to circumvent even the effect of the Copyright Act just through combinations of crypto, so that you don't need the Copyright Act. I can stop people from looking at things just by encrypting them, but I can also do what's called back-end connectivity, so that I can give the image solely to Gary in such a way that I lose access to the image.
Yes, but it doesn't stop anybody from copying that image.
But they have to get access to
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Yeah.
They do no, not necessarily, because if you make one image itself and you pass it on, that's true. But what happens if Gary, shows it to somebody and somebody takes a picture of it on their camera, and they can manipulate that in any kind of, AI program itself, and then go out and bastardize it, just like they've done with Bored Ape Yacht Clubs. They have sold fake Bored Ape Yacht Clubs, and this is on chain.
Yeah, exactly.
But what you can do is you can manipulate what are called GPOs, group policy objectives, to stop Gary being able to he has the only view. It's a bit like owning the Vitruvian man, right? The image. Now, the original is now owned by Bill Gates. He's the only one who can look at it. So no one else can get access to it.
Well, it's probably
unless he grants access. And I'm sure that he won't allow anyone with a mobile phone to go anywhere near that.
Well, see, then, excuse me, Stella, but that defeats the purpose of an NFT, because NFT is basically an non-fungible contract based on a smart contract. Based on a smart contract. It's basically helps to provide commissions and residuals to the artists themselves in usage. Some of them do, and you're shaking your head. And I politely disagree with you. I politely disagree with you. Because they're heavily traded among, it depends on which NFT we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Depends on what type of NFT we're talking about. If you only have an NFT that has a viewable passage of one person, that's not really an NFT, is it?
It is, and there's different markets. So I completely agree with your definition of how it provides accessibility in that. But having done some exposure in the art world, one of the things I was really surprised by is that in the art world, a lot of the time it's about bragging rights. It's about being able to prove that you own something and you're not actually interested in what that something is. So it's almost like having the Mona Lisa. And what's important is to have evidence that you own the Mona Lisa, not making it publicly accessible or viewable. So it's a real shame.
That's a good argument, because haven't they fractionalized the Mona Lisa and sold it off? The museums have jumped on board for NFTs. They've fractionalized really beautiful works of art in order to raise money for museums and galleries, in order to support and, you know, get all this income coming in to generate, in order to keep the art history.
Yep.
To keep the pictures and be able to monitor them and keep them go further out to seek further funding for other bigger projects. So in a way, it's a little ecoverse, isn't it?
It's
That's
both.
just a new business model.
Yep.
Of course it is.
Yep.
That's exactly right.
But folks, it's a real shame. We're getting to a particularly interesting part of the conversation right now, right at the end of which I'm about to say, well, that's it for the week, folks. Bye. So I'm really sorry. I do try and close these off on time because I know people have other things that they have to go on to. So I'm going to have to wrap it up and say, you know, sorry for cutting the conversation short, because I think that was about to get really interesting. I'd love to continue
Why
with
don't
it
we
next
join
week.
again next week and we'll start off on that area?
Exactly.
I would love to, but I don't think I'm traveling. So if I can do individuals, I would love to. I'd absolutely love to. I'd like to hear more about the one permission access. I would really love to hear more about that. And also
there's a new thing called NTTs, non-transferable tokens.
Yeah.
And they're very important.
Yeah. And SFTs, which are semi-fungible tokens, which just blow my head. Anyway, folks, gonna have to close off, but I'm going to say thank you very much.
Okay.
Do reach out to me via LinkedIn if you need any connections or any conversations or anything.
Thank you, Gary. Catch you later, mate.
Yeah, cheers,
We'll talk
Adrian.
tomorrow. Bye.
Divine, got your connection already. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day. Cheers. Bye now.
Great. Bye now.